A couple of years ago, you would have heard me saying on this channel that for Tesla, it all came down to batteries. And I wouldn't have been alone in that, but I would have been one of a small group that said, he who owns the batteries owns the world. Well, it turns out a couple of years later, things have changed radically in the entire world, and nothing we ever would have expected in terms of AI, in terms of what's going on with intelligence, which is so radically changed things that I no longer believe that he who owns the batteries owns the world. But what I will say is the batteries are still right at the root of every single one of the things that Tesla and SpaceX does. Without the batteries, there is no Tesla, there is no SpaceX. So today, over the last few days, in fact, there's been a number of remarkable news stories out with regard to batteries. Brian White has actually put out a couple of those stories, and one of the other ones just popped out this morning from my new favorite, Tesla Ming. And Brian is prepared to inform us about everything there is to know, or at least everything he knows, which may or may not be the same thing. Brian.
We will find out. So there's a lot going on with batteries. Uh, if I asked you or you asked me 3 years ago, what's going to be the biggest driver of megapack sales over the next 10 years? I don't think data centers would have made our list. It was not on my horizon. And AI, if you'd have asked us all 5 years ago in the pre-chat GPT moment, what's going to be the next big disruptor? I don't think we'd have said AI. And the next thing is coming. No, it isn't. I can't see anything on the horizon. Right. That's how disruption works. You will not see it coming. But it's there. We just don't know what it is yet. So let's talk about one of the new miracle batteries. I was over the weekend while I was at the event, we just finished up our summer meetup in Muskegon with the Tesla Owners Club of Michigan. We had some fantastic folks out there. Jordan 𝐑𝐚𝐲𝐝 was there, Dr. Scott Know-It-All, Dr. Know-It-All, Dr. Scott Walter. There's so many brilliant people in one place. And when we're not on stage, we're backstage and we're talking. And then we go to dinner and we talk some more. This weekend, the story of the CATL 12,000 watt hour per kilogram battery came out. And I had people hounding me. Why haven't you already covered this story that just broke 14 hours ago on the weekend while you're on stage at an event? I apologize. My crew is not sufficient to make that happen. That's a pretty big ask. Even whole news teams can't be anyway. This is not a battery that's in production. It is not a battery that is in prototype. It is a battery that is on paper. It is a theoretical possibility. Could it happen? Maybe, maybe not. But there is a path. The only question is, can it happen? But what would change? Like fundamentally, what would change if instead of 300 or 400 watt hours per kilogram, you had 30 times that? And the answer is kind of everything. Everything. You couldn't go to space with it. It will not get you escape velocity because you need chemical propulsion to do that. But you would have long distance air travel. You would have, for your car, I guess you could have a car that's as heavy as one today that has 6,000 miles of range.
Right.
That's pointless. Maybe as a novelty, someone would want that. But what you would have is a car that looks just like a Honda Accord, but weighs 800 pounds less. That's a win. You would have batteries that are so compact relative to what they are today that you would have to make some decisions about where are we going to actually put them, because we don't need to dedicate a lot of space. Maybe they go behind the second row seat, but down, they're so compact, it would change absolutely everything. Is it going to change it today? No, it is not. It might be in 10 years, but getting something from prototype to production, from validation to production, is a huge time-consuming step, and we're nowhere near validation. We haven't even reached prototyping. So it's a ways out. Conversely, we do have a steady stream of good news on sodium batteries. I imagine you have some questions about some news on sodium this week. Sodium is, it's great. It's no silver bullet. It will allow a lot of countries to have new sources for their electrolyte. For the in the battery, you need that intermediary substance that's between the anode and the cathode. This is going to get you there. Sodium is abundant. It's everywhere. No country has a monopoly on it. I don't know if there's any country without access to it, but it's not really a bottleneck. And there's only like $40 worth of lithium in a car anyway. These are going to have other applications. When I was talking to Jordan 𝐑𝐚𝐲𝐝𝐲 last week, I showed him a spider diagram. I'd seen this at the North America Battery Show last year, where this research team had a bunch of different, they said, here's lithium, a high nickel battery. Here's LFP. Here's, a zinc battery. And it's a spider diagram showing how much performance it has, how many cycles it has, what the cost is. There is no one best battery. There's a best battery for the application. And if you can make a bunch of sodium batteries for grid scale storage, which CATL is rolling out in September, grid scale sodium ion batteries, they will be in the hands of customers this year. That eases the pressure off the rest of the supply chain. But it's not going to make them automatically cheaper. The real cost is in the manufacturing, and the manufacturing is less concerned with what the materials inside of it cost. So there are some opportunities there, but they're not infinite.
All right. And there was another story that I just read a little while ago from Tesla Ming, which I encourage you to take a look at, which had to do with making battery cells in some way that would allow them to not be so difficult in cold weather.
So it's a dual use battery. I'd seen proposals like this early on that said, boy, when lithium ion batteries couldn't charge and discharge quick enough, how do you make a car really, really fast? Well, why don't we throw some capacitors in it? Those can discharge instantly. But on this one, what they're saying is, why don't we, instead of having 4 modules of lithium ion batteries, why don't we go 2 sodium, 2 lithium? So we get the punch of the lithium battery, but the cold weather performance and I guess cost reduction of the sodium on the other side. All we need is to basically put in 2 control modules to battery management systems. There's a lot of added complexity, but it's really not that much. You and I will never buy that car. You and I don't need that car. But especially for the northernmost parts of China, where it's up in the mountains and the cold is really a problem, this will allow them to have batteries that actually work in their very cold climate. Right now, the solution is a lot of companies that make electric cars that were just sure they'd be all electric any day now. And some car companies that only made electric cars, like 𝐓𝐿, have introduced extended range EVs. And it's not because some oil lobby told them to. It's because they have customers that live in northern China where it's very cold. And if you lose 35% of your battery range in a remote part, these aren't people who are just driving in the city. These are people who have to log 100, 200 miles a day. It no longer works. You can't do it. These sodium batteries would, at least hopefully, get them there. So whether those places would just go straight sodium, they might just go with the double chemistry approach, and it could fix their situation. The real beauty is what we're seeing is an all of the above approach. Not all batteries are right for all applications. There is no miracle battery today. I know that was the name of my Monday live stream, was Miracle Battery Breakthrough versus the reality.
I see.
There is no miracle. There's a miracle for you. You can imagine a medication that is only good for 1% of the population would still be life-changing for 80 million people.
Right, right. Exactly right. Okay, so there was another article today. You might have seen it. That was, or it was actually a video. I can't remember who put it out, but anyway, it was a video, a drone video of the mega factory. Actually, now in this case, the mega block factory,
Oh, uh-huh.
and it was showing. I tried to figure it out. Maybe you have more insight into this, or you already know what it's about. Is the mega pack, the original mega block factory, 1 million square feet, and now they're adding another 800,000? That seemed to be what I was getting out of this
Hmm.
article, this video.
So I have not had a chance to watch that video. I, of course, have been following the news all day, but we're still running around scouting locations and whatnot. So I haven't had a chance to watch anything. Um, the original Megapack factory in Lathrop was a JCPenney
Right.
furniture distribution center that they expanded.
Mhm.
The factory in Texas is built from the ground up for just Mega Block, or Megapack 3 if you prefer. And it is I don't know what the projected size was. 1 million square feet would already make it substantially bigger than Lathrop. Lathrop is not anywhere close to 1 million square feet. It's probably only 300, 400,000. I don't have the number off the top of my head. It's much smaller. The one in Shanghai is a little bit bigger than the one in Lathrop, but not significantly. So if you're seeing a number like 800,000 square feet or 1 million square feet, I would assume that that would include any expansion that they would be doing. But here's the thing with Tesla is if they have the money and they know they have the product, they will absolutely build it out in advance. The crew is already there. The marginal cost to just expand it rather than stop, wait a year or three, and then restart, it's a better deal. And with inflation, I mean, the factory is cheaper today than it's going to be in the future. So it will allow them to have future capacity like we've seen in Berlin, like we've seen in Texas, where they have more space than they need because they know they're going to use it.
Okay. So those would be now. There's also, I've been hearing, maybe you know something about this, maybe you don't. So I may be hitting you blind here, but something about an air battery.
Mhm. Lithium air battery is the one I saw. I don't know if this is the same as the 12,000 kilowatt one. Um, Let me just peek real quick and see, but I don't think I have any good oh yeah, that's the 12,000 watt hour
Oh,
per
it's the same
kilogram one
one.
that
Oh,
we talked
interesting.
about. Yeah.
Okay. Do we know how does the air, do we have any idea how air is where does the air, what does the air take out? What don't you need?
Uh-huh. Well, there's liquid state batteries and solid state batteries, but I know the best substance is no substance. I don't know. I don't know.
I think that's exactly, you got it. I'm positive.
That's it.
Yeah,
We're on to something.
in fact, that's,
And
yeah,
yeah, and there's a lot to if you were ever in a science class, you may have made a battery. You may have made it out of lemons or potatoes, but there are a lot of ways to make a battery.
yeah.
When you were a kid, you may have taken a double A and thought, why can't I recharge this? And tried to recharge it and made a little bit of a messy hot acid fire in your house. Uh, there are
Is this autobiographical right now? Is this?
no, my class never made batteries, and I never tried to recharge a alkaline battery. There are, well, why can't I just put some juice in it? It's not how it works. It's a one-way process. So there are, I mean, infinite's the wrong number. It's not an infinite number of chemistries. It's not an infinite number of ways you can do things, but there are a whole lot of approaches that can all be good for some application or other. And when I see people looking at things like flow batteries and saying how they're definitely, oh, this would never work, as I say, for what? For automotive, definitely not. Don't use that. But for other applications, it can work.
Yeah.
It may make sense in some cases. Like if you look at some of the technology that's gone into military products, you would say this has no application outside of this. But for this, it's critical. So yeah, different batteries for different uses. A lot of things that will be very good for automotive might not make any sense in portable electronics or stationary storage. But I leave it to people much smarter than us. And the good news is there are thousands of organizations doing the research all over the world across all political parties, all kinds of companies, all industries. And right now we're at a really great convergence point for these technologies where you finally can make amazing motors because the demand happens to be there because there are amazing batteries, which we can also make better. So this is, I don't know, it's an exciting time to be alive, Randy. I recommend it.
It is. Yeah. You recommend it?
For the viewers at home, if you're thinking about the alternative, don't.
Oh,
Much better way.
So follow Brian. You can find him anywhere that you can find something about future. I was thinking, Brian, that maybe when Disney redoes their parks, they could change the land to FutureAza land.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
You're right.
I will make a few phone calls. I'm sure. How hard could it be?
Yes.
It's as easy as, a lot of the things that where people say just.
Just.
Like,
Yeah.
Well, Toyota made the Prius. Now they need to just make it an EV. I'm with you, man. They should have, but they felt that just was a lot more capitalized than we did.
All right, I'm going to take a minute right now, though, to do something you don't normally do, and that is pitch another video that I did earlier because it's also Brian W. who did them. It's just the other Brian W. who has future.
The other future
in his
Brian.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But Brian did two videos over the weekend with me, one on Saturday morning, Sunday morning, and one this morning. They are really super critical. So I'm just going to put the cards up on both of them. You really should go back and check both of those out if you hadn't had a chance to look at them yet. I don't normally do this on somebody else's show, but this time I just felt the necessity because they're that important.
If you've got, especially if the topics have overlap, but if you've got something really hot, I think that's a good thing to do. I think that's something that viewers should appreciate because you're getting a curated list from the expert himself.
That's right. Okay. All right. Brian W. with an HIT after it, and also of a future with a future in your handle. Follow FutureAza everywhere you go. Brian, so much thanks for coming on, and to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.